of Aspen between World Wars I and II are now looked upon by those who lived here as relatively pleasant times when the town was small and neighborly. This is true, but the Depression years were tough ones, and outside help was necessary. But despite this fact, the beauty of the area was free for all. Many of the inhabitants loved their town and their mountains, and still do. Oh, I'd like to. And apparently you must have been courting.
Yeah, we did. I tried to get...
On horseback?
On horseback, yes. And Wednesdays, he would take me to a movie. But not on Tuesday or Thursday, it had to be Wednesday.
It probably cost at least 2 bits, I bet, to go to the film.
Yeah, and then he took me to the buffet.
Where was the buffet?
In the hotel.
Was it good?
Yeah, you could either get a strong drink or malted milk. It was great.
You have an Irish crud that was about 4 ounces of whiskey and a malted milk.
Now here, this is a real historical moment, because I always thought cruds were a post-war development, but they weren't, huh?
Oh, no, Lawrence Elisha.
Oh, Lawrence thought them up.
I'm sure he did, didn't he?
Oh, this is beautiful. Look at this.
But you couldn't drink any more whiskey straight, you had to put malted milk with it.
Well, everyone grew their own vegetables and milked their cows and raised pigs and sheep, and we didn't raise sheep, but most people did.
We had a real lot of snow, and we had before we remodeled our shed out here, and the snow was piled so high, neighborhood kids would come over and they'd get on the top of the roof and slide clear down into the street on pasteboard boxes. They had a ball.
Oh, what fun. Little Nell was wooded then. Did kids ever go over there and slide, or did they slide on the streets?
Well, if they did, the boys more or less on barrel staves, you know, for skis or stuff.
Really? Did your children do that?
Yeah, our boys did. The girls didn't take to it too much. But
well, I'll tell you what us kids used to do a lot. When the teamster used to go up here on Aspen Mountain to go up and get a load of ore, we'd jump on their wagon or sled and we'd ride up with him. And he'd load up his sled and then we'd ride back down.
Well, everybody was congenial, and we'd have our get-togethers nearly every Saturday night. We'd have dances.
We did have horses. We let it run loose. Red's family had cows, so it was my job to keep the cows from getting my horse pasture. But didn't belong to either one of us.
What was the town like then?
Oh, it was great. I could ride the horse uptown in front of where the thrift shop is now. Was Beck and Bishop's, was Beck's. There was a big watering trough there, great big one. And I always watered the horse there. And then my granddaddy's drugstore was around where the Wonder Shop is. What's there now? Rock Shop? I don't know what's there. They changed so. And I could just put the horse out there, and in fact, sometimes he'd follow me in this drugstore. But you could park a horse anywhere, you know. I was the only horse in town, but no, there weren't too many people. You know, a few fishermen came.
Oh, 350.
There were more than that.
Did other people like you come up for the summer?
Darcy Brown's family and ours did from Denver, and I can tell you, the kids here weren't very friendly.
They were too rough for these city girls.
Yeah, they were too rough for the city girls. That's the truth.
What were you doing about this time?
You were at the midnight.
You were in your overalls.
Well, that was when Bill remember this is.
Oh, was that on the screen?
Here's a picture of 1930 of what I was doing.
Okay, what does it
That's
show?
on Independence Pass. They never had any bulldozers those days. We put 2 of these 4-wheel drive Coleman trucks, and everybody in Aspen would get together and go up and dynamite these snow slides.
Is this to clear the path so that other cars could
You didn't
come
have
over?
any bulldozers or any snow movers.
You had shovels.
You dynamite them the first week you'd go up and shovel through all these slides. Then the next week you'd go, and Lawrence Elisha's dad was one of the main guys, and Darcy Brown's uncle, Bert Brown, he was the one that pulled for Independence Pass, or it wouldn't have been there.
Hmm? I didn't know that. Was Brown the banker?
Well, he was a banker.
His brother, really. Billy Brown was.
Billy was the banker, and there was Harry who took care of the water business with the Brown.
Electric.
They owned the... They owned
Electricity.
those two utilities?
Yeah.
Did you go off riding in the hills with the Brown family?
With Diddy,
Yeah.
Perry.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I saw it.
Yeah, Diddy and I rode together.
Did you go up Hunter Creek and?
Oh, yes. Hunter was my favorite.
Oh, really?
My grandfather used to always tell me that I must have a boyfriend up there, and you wouldn't see a soul but a sheep herder. But you know how many places you can ride up there?
You mean now?
Well, you could then. And you could ride from here. I mean, I could ride anywhere. I could ride up Maroon Lake, I could ride up Castle Creek, right from town.
Yeah,
but you
no
can't do
cars,
it.
or very few.
Very few, very few. You know, I mean, and they went slow, you know, so that they would
I used to
consider
get
the horse.
I used to come back off a pack trip and then saddle all my horses right here and just turn them loose. I wouldn't find them for another 3 days to go out where the tent is, work all week, and go round up the horses, and next go again for the weekend camp.
Well, now when you
No
went
dog catchers, no horse pond.
Yeah, right.
when you went on a trip like that, Red, where would you go?
Willow Lake, Maroon Lake, all over. I went every place there was a lake and any fishing with horses.
Well, now was this after you were married, or before?
Oh, before,
Or
long
during?
before.
Yeah.
No, we used to ride Sundays.
Oh, we'd ride.
But we didn't fish. Well, we didn't fish, did we? We won't say any more than that.
Was it interesting working on the automobile road over Independence Pass?
Oh, yes, it was real interesting. You're out in the open.
And these were pre-bulldozer days, so there were a lot of shovels, I gather.
there's power shovels. They had power shovels and then hand shovels.
That's a lot of shoveling on that road, I imagine.
There's one stretch of road built up here. There was a bunch of foreign labor shipped in, and all they had was short shovels and horses and what they call slips. They would haul dirt with these slips and dump it over the bank.
Oh, well. What stretch, do you happen to remember what stretch of road that was?
Yeah, it was right from where you turn off to go down Difficult up to Smith's Lake.
Yeah.
Was that
Stretch. Did those men stay in town and then go up every day?
They had camps.
Oh, really?
Yeah, had road camps.
Well, I imagine one of the reasons it took a long time to build the automobile road, because the season's rather short on Independence.
Well, that's the only time they could work would be in the summertime. They
And
never done
sometime-
any winter work at all.
Sometimes a short summer, too.
It took a long while to build that road.
It's got better,
Yeah.
you know.
And did you help make the roads better by grading and
Yeah, just maintain them. We didn't.
with a scraper?
Maintainer.
Maintainer. Well, before that, I had a grader, pull grader.
Oh, what was it pulled by? A truck?
Coleman.
Oh, I see.
Coleman
A Coleman truck, a four-wheel drive truck.
And Henry Sears, my driver.
Do you also use those trucks with plows on them to keep the
Oh,
roads
yes,
open
we
in the
do.
winter? How did that work for people on very isolated ranches? Did they stay out all winter, sort of isolated, or were the roads cleared?
We had to clear them all the time. Just keep busy going day and night.
Did you really?
There was lots of times he didn't come home till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh,
When
really?
he had to make the run up the frying pan.
Ooh, and there were, how many people were doing this, Mr. Schnider, in this county, besides you?
Well, it was mostly myself and my helper. At
Oh.
first, they had that 27 Coleman, and it didn't do much work for us.
They
Then
didn't
we got
have
a
the
net
crew
night
they
shift
got working
sometimes go
now.
on for somebody replaced by driving, and they'd go out. And then we'd change it back and forth.
Yeah. But there were a lot of roads in this county and a lot of snow, so...
Oh, yeah, way more.
Huh.
I ain't seen half as much snow as we used to have years ago.
So, and you had to move it
Mm-hmm.
so that people could come to town and get food and...
You see, I had the county roads the same time the state highway on top of that.
Oh, my gracious.
And I had to go all the way to Basalt and back up and up Capitol and maybe out of there and then come up McLean Flats.
And then didn't John Skiff and Henry Hogan work
Yeah,
too?
they had the old Coleman, the 27
Yeah,
Coleman.
they had a Coleman, and they took they each take different routes, you know, so they cleared them up as quick as they could.
Were there ever snows that you just have to keep going day and night
Day
to
and
keep
night.
them
Oh,
to
sure.
keep the roads
Especially the
clear?
highway.
Yeah. Were there avalanches on that highway?
Just down around the Shale Bluffs and a couple down below the side of Snowmass.
Did anybody ever get caught in them?
Jimmy
He did
did.
once.
Oh,
He
really?
was driving a
Taxi.
taxi for Hanson, Demmer and Hanson, and he got caught in one.
Ooh, dear. That was kind of scary out then, wasn't it?
We didn't know about it until afterwards.
Well, I did. You're the one who dug him out.
cattle.
Cattle?
I believe it'd be, wouldn't you say that cattle was the main thing?
Oh, yes, yes, I'm sure. Because, don't you know, in the fall they'd have the cattle drive
and several cars of potatoes each year, and cars of oats and wheat. They thrash the wheat and the oats with their own thrashing machine. They had a big thrashing machine, and they did go out and thrash for some of the neighbors. But now there's nothing like that.
Did you go out on the and do on the threshing machines? Or?
No, I just went out and seen them once in a while, but I didn't. I did run most of the machinery just when they were short of someone to help or something. But
you did?
Not to say run it.
That's pretty good. I guess it was hard work in those days as well as...
I don't think it's any harder than it is now.
Really?
It's different.
It's, did you know when you moved up here, had you already lived on a ranch, or was this a whole new thing for you?
No, it wasn't really new. I lived, that's what I did, was a rancher daughter before that.
Oh.
We went to the agricultural college. That's how I happened to come over here. My husband went from here and I went from there, and we met at college.
Yes, for 50 years. Dad had the ranch for 50 years. Now Paepckes.
Oh, it's
owns it.
Paepckes? Part of Paepckes Ranch,
yes.
or?
Yes,
No.
it's part of Paepckes Ranch. That's right.
Well, could you tell, you said you had a house in town too, at that time, or perhaps all the time.
Yeah.
So you were back and forth,
Sure.
perhaps. Did you come to town a lot and stay here in the winter when it was kind of hard to get around, or?
Well, hard to get around. We came here to go to school. See,
I see.
We went to school in the country schools up Capitol Creek in Snowmass.
These were
old Snowmass.
one-room schools?
Yes. And then we came into school in town because some of the older, there were 8 in our family. Remember that, 4 boys and 4
Really?
girls.
No, I didn't.
So some of them were going to high school, some of them were in 7th, 8th grade. And like those older ones would stay here in town, and we'd be out in the country riding a horse to go to school in the country schools. And so my dad would bring in a whole, so we'd have houses, we had houses all over town here at different times.
Oh, that's right, you could almost pick a house, couldn't you?
Yeah. So anyway, my dad would bring in a whole sleigh load of provisions, you know, ham, bacon, all we ate well. He'd haul in that stuff, but he'd come in through the snow, and it was never plowed at all, you know, never, of course, in those days. And bring a team of horses. He'd come in at night, he'd be in here all night and leave in the morning real early. So he'd be back there to take care of the cows on the ranch and the horses and so forth.
How long did it take him to drive back and forth? Drive a team up here, I should say, from
it'd take
the ranch.
about, depending on the snow, 3 hours
Oh, that's not so bad.
one way. I mean,
Yeah, I thought it might take half a
well,
day
sometimes
or
more than that.
something like that. Well, okay, so here your dad came with a whole bunch of provisions. Who would be living in the house? The kids and the mother, or would you just some of the older kids?
Well, the older ones, and sometimes my mother would alternate and come in and stay with some of the ones here in town. They were going to school here, and then she'd go out to the ranch and stay with us younger ones and try to keep things under control all the way around, see. Well, that's the way it
Which is quite a job with 8 kids, I would say.
Yeah, you're doggone right.
Hugh, I'm curious to know what you did with your crops. Where they went, where the wheat went, and who you sold the alfalfa to. Maybe you used it yourself.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, as a matter of fact, see, we raised hay, alfalfa. We had 2 crops. And timothy, we had the best timothy in the country. That stuff would grow 4 feet high. And when you mowed it, God, it is so heavy that you'd get down there and pick the mouse nests off of it and stuff like that. A lot of people don't know anything about that. I know that. Oh God, of course they don't. But anyway, we raised hay, grain, and oats, sometimes barley, because we rotated all the time, and some potatoes. Enough to make you work at them.
Yeah. Did you use the grasses for your own stock, or did you sell part of it?
Well, we stacked enough hay. That was with the old-time buckers and rakes and stuff that they don't have now, and these people don't know anything about them, really. An overhand stacker that fell onto the bucker, you pulled a bucker load of hay in there, and then pull out and go and get another buckload of hay. But as far as the we kept enough. We had a range right for about 80 head of cattle during the summer and into the fall. And then we raised all our own hay to feed those cattle all during the winter.
How much was that?
How much?
How many tons, for instance?
Oh, approximately 100 ton, I guess. 120, 25, somewhere in there. Would take care of, we always had about 10 head of horses. And like I said, these milk cows that were around there. I could tell you a comical little story on the milk cows.
Well, please do.
Well, anyway, we did everything well. That story there on the milk cows. See, I milked a lot of cows because that was the mainstay of the ranch there. Sometimes selling this cream, and we had to milk these cows. We had a good barn, and it took care of about, like I said, about 15 head of cows in there, and we had a conglomeration of Durhams and Shorthorns and all kinds of. Some of them were pretty wild, I'll tell you, because we broke them, and when we broke them, we put them in these stanchions, and they were tight, but then you had to tie their legs up because they kicked like hell. So I'd put a rope on these fellas and tie them up sometimes, but anyway, this old pig got acquainted with me. See, we had a pig out in the back, and oh, you know, pigs are pretty smart.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, they are. You'd be surprised. They're like a dog. Pretty soon they'll learn. And so this pig would come in, and I'd squirt, when I was milking the cow, I'd squirt milk in his face, see? And pretty soon that old pig, oh, closer and closer all the time. And pretty soon, all of a sudden, I thought, well, I'll let that fella work for himself. And so he come up there, and he grabbed a hold of that mother's old tip there. Wham! Boy, that cow kicked me, and the bucket of milk, and the pig clear to the...
Helen Lake was a public and everybody went down there. Well, they went down there and they boat riding. And then you know where Mrs. Paepckes' place is, up on the hill. They had to shoot the chutes from the top of that hill down into the water with a boat.
Oh, there was a boat on the chute that would go down?
Yes, and they worked it something mechanically, and then they'd shoot it down there, and they were down in the water.
Did you ever do that?
Oh yes, I'd done that. And you could walk, and then on the side of the chutes, they had a stairway all the way down into the lake, and they had what you call it, a fence around, so you could walk all around the lake. And they were served, well, they had a pavilion where we danced, a great big pavilion where they danced, and also one where they served refreshments and stuff like that. Oh. It was a public park, was what it was. It belonged to the city of Aspen.
my sister and I weren't allowed near them. Not that we wanted to, especially, I guess. But especially 4th of July, you know, there's that big white building. Is it still there?
I'm not sure.
I kind of think it is.
Yeah?
But I think they had that all kind of dancing and a lot of liquor. Of course, the town was wide open at that time, and that was quite a gay thing, 4th of July. It was the Hallam Lake thing. They would dance and drink.
And they have band concerts down there?
I believe they did. And it seems to me they did. We were never there because Mom wouldn't let us even look that way. She was extra strict though, really. Yes, there used to be parades, didn't they, Mary?
I was wondering, oh yes, don't you remember your Mr. VanLoon's folks riding in that surrey with a
fringe on top?
Usually, and some guy brought an old airplane in here one time from Leadville, and he said it was a Rocky that birds walked over Independence, but he hauled passengers up Snowmass Lake and everything.
Oh, really? Didn't they have jackhammer?
They always had rock drill contests, you know, and the tunnel was going on.
Oh, yeah?
But all businesses put in a float. Didn't matter how bad it was, or, you know.
Did everybody who had a horse get in the parade too?
Sure.
Well, everybody had a horse.
So that would mean the ranchers would come to town as well as people in town who had horses.
That's all the skiff outfit.
And this went on in the 20s and the 30s, the 30s, and then on through.
That's went on since we've been
right
here
up
back.
to the present day, didn't
Well, we don't have a 4th of July. It's a winter school now, but we always, you know, we don't do.
Yeah.
This has all been going on since
always did.
1940.
Yeah.
Winter school and the 4th of July parade.
Oh, it did it before that.
Oh, but I mean, since we've been back, we used to go in before the horse and buggy. And
Was there a dance at night?
oh, brother, that's what you went for.
And what kind of orchestra played at the dance?
Sis Ritchie played. She
Who's
lived.
Sis Ritchie?
Sis Ritchie lived next door to Lena VanLoon, and she played the fiddle. I took violin lessons from Sis, and her brother played the drum. My brother played the clarinet. Let's see who else was in it.
Jimmy played the.
Jimmy
the two
McKenna.
brothers played.
No, Jimmy, her brother.
Bill
Who
and
else
Jimmy.
played with him?
Francis
Played the
Williams?
piano. I don't think Francis played. Did
One
that.
different kinks of it.
But the boys never took the girls.
Oh yeah, they all met at
They
the
all
dance?
met at the dance, but they might take you home if you were lucky.
You're working 12 hours a day. It's pretty
No.
hard to get a date. You had to go there and see what you can find.
Where were these
In
parties?
the old army hall. Yeah.
That place
was fun.
really must have been a
Oh, it was
busy
fun.
place
It
and
was
really
really fun.
used. Was there a
Really.
balcony around it?
Mm-hmm.
So I suppose
Upstairs this
mothers could sit upstairs and see
mothers
that
sit
everybody
right
was
They
down.
sat right
Downstairs.
down and
Oh, did
sometimes
they?
shook the,
You had to have a lot of nerve to ask
Shook
your
their
daughter for a dance if you're about half ginned up.
There were two
They
big
watched every
events.
move you made.
They needed to. There was the 4th of July dance and then the flower show. We used to have the PEO flower show.
Oh yeah?
And
where
that was
the
our
PE?
money. We had it in the Army Hall.
Oh, yeah?
And we
19th day of
decorated.
August.
Well, it was in August.
It's
And we had a
17th
flower
day.
show in the daytime and a program and served tea or cookies or something like that, you know. Then at night was the dance and we dressed up. It was a very nice dance, but we decorated
No
for
Levi's.
hours.
When
That was a big event.
when they had the flower shows in the tent, after
That
the
was
music
later. Mm-hmm.
festival started, was that still the
That was the same,
POE.
PEOs.
You
PEO.
remember those?
PEO? Yeah, and everybody
But it-
sweet peas?
Yes, but it didn't work as well. We used to make $300 or
was fun,
$400, and that was a lot of money in those days. But that was the event, wasn't it, in
Well,
the
they
summer?
suspended
If you didn't go to
after you
the,
made it.
if you didn't go to the flower show and the dance, you hadn't. That was the whole summer event.
Tell me about the flower shows, which apparently they had these marvelous, marvelous flower shows.
No, we had
Every
the
year.
marvelous flowers at that time. That's, I don't know if maybe lots of cars may do something to the atmosphere, but gradually our beautiful sweet peas just didn't seem so beautiful anymore.
There was a fellow that used to come in and fix the vault, check the vault door on the bank. And he told me, he traveled all the way around Colorado to fix vaults. He told me that he didn't think there was any place that raised any better sweet peas than Aspen. He said Uray and Aspen had the two best climates there was.
For sweet peas?
Uray, Colorado. He said there was something that made the sweet peas all over.
Are you still growing them like this?
Oh yes. I'll have some next summer.
I can't wait.
I can't hardly put them in now.
Well, I had one brother and then 5 sisters, which was very hard to get along with.
Oh, of course, yeah. Right.
You know, the girls do something wrong and the boys get the blame.
Oh, isn't that funny? I'd always heard it was the other way around. Mr. Garrish, what'd you do after you stopped working at the bakery?
Well, it was about let's see, I was born in 1907, and I started there when I was 19 years old, be 1916. About 1920, I started working. I didn't work in the mine steady, I was still going to school, but my father was short of help, see, that was during the First World War.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a pretty good streak of ore over there in number 2 tunnel.
Is that in the smuggler?
That's in the smuggler, yeah. And he wanted me to go over and help him every Saturday and Sunday. I used to go over and help my dad.
Who else were there other miners working there during the week, or just your father working there alone?
No, there was other miners in there.
So what did you do on Saturday and Sunday to help your father in the mine? Did they blast and you shoveled out the stuff into an ore cart?
No, we shoveled it down into the chute, see, and then they would come along, we'd get 40, 50 ton in there, and then we'd put it in the put it all in the chute, and then they'd trim it out for us and take it down and load it up in the railroad car, and we'd ship it to Leadville.
Okay, then what you were putting down the chute and into the cars,
that was ore.
That was good ore. What did you do with all the other stuff that had to be shoveled out, the waste material?
There was quite a few old stopes and stuff in there where we could dump that waste stuff that didn't amount to too much. So.
Would you explain what a stope is?
That's where they're taking the body of ore out at one time or another.
A great big room underground.
Yeah, well, not too big of it.
Oh, really?
Some
as big as a house?
Not like the glory hole up there when that caved down. It was a big one.
Oh, I see. So they varied in size depending on what the amount of ore.
The way this ore body opens up, you know, some places they're big and some places they're smaller.
Well, did your father make a good living out of this kind of mining?
At that time, we made a very good living out of it.
Oh, good. What did you do? Here you were, a schoolboy miner, in a way.
Yeah.
Were you really?
I'd go to school all week, and then Saturday and Sunday I'd go over and help my dad out.
Well, then, when you finished school, did you go to mining as a full-time job?
Well, I got different jobs around. Let's see, what did I do? Well, I stayed with my dad for quite a while.
His good ore kept on, so there was plenty to do in that particular mine.
And then I picked up odd jobs here and there. When we got through working over there, I picked up odd jobs here and there.
Did you ever do any leasing on your own in the Aspen area?
Yes, ma'am.
Where did you do that?
Well, you know where the loading station is up here, where they unload on Little Nell?
Sure do. The Upper Durant?
No, the halfway station.
Okay, yeah.
On the halfway station there. Just a little above that, there was what they called Middle Tunnel.
Oh.
So Joan Lane and I took a lease up there. And we got some pretty good ore out of there, too.
That involved a lot of shoveling and blasting.
Yeah.
Did you have any machinery to work with?
No,
at
all
that
handwork.
time? Really?
All handwork.
Was it considered dangerous?
Not too dangerous if you watch yourself, you know, you timber up so that you wouldn't get killed.
Well,
A great time up at the Annie mine when I was up there. I didn't cook all the time. The cook quit and there was an emergency and I took over. But the woman at the Hurricane, that bunch used to come over and then we'd have a party.
oh, what fun. Would you cook special things for the party?
Oh, sure.
Did you have any people playing musical instruments or,
Oh,
you know,
sure.
that kind of thing, and
Mouth harps.
dancing?
Mouth harps and things.
And people would sing and
Yes.
dance. I'd probably collapse at that altitude if I did any exertion. Now that's another thing. Here you were working 9,000-10,000 feet maybe. Did you find it hard because of the altitude, or were you so used to it that it didn't bother you?
Never bothered me.
Really? I worked at Gretel's restaurant in Turlock Park once briefly. I found it hard to work at that altitude. But I wasn't born here, and you were.
Yeah, I was used to the high altitude.
What else did you? Well, tell me about a typical day when you had to cook in the boarding house. What time did you have to get up, and what did you give them for breakfast?
Well, they had the usual thing, either ham or bacon and eggs and toast or pancakes. And the thing that stands out in my mind, the Cornwall boy was supposed to get the water from way over at the spring. And he'd go over there and fiddle around because he was just a kid. And lots of times I used to have to run to catch up with him.
What time did you start to work?
Oh, I'd get up about 5 o'clock in the morning.
Were you cooking on a cook stove?
Uh-huh.
Who chopped the wood for you?
That kid. And I was after him half the time.
Well, now, would you fix the men lunch so they go in the mine? Would they eat lunch in the mine or that shift?
Sometimes they did.
Or would they come out for lunch?
Most of the time they come out.
Oh, I see. So they weren't way far in in the mine. And so.
No.
And what did they have for lunch? Okay.
Anything you could throw together.
If they brought me the right
all
supplies, if they had a good lunch, but they didn't, or they didn't.
Did they? Well, these men were doing very hard physical labor,
And
so
were
they ate
hungry.
a lot, I'm sure.
Yes. Well, we had a lot of beef meat, and as I remember, pork, and I'd have roast or something like that, you know, and they loved potatoes, so I cooked potatoes in different forms. And I always baked pie. They loved pie. And I baked donuts and all that sort of thing.
Did they drink lots of coffee?
Oh my, they by gallons.
And you were doing all this on a cook stove?
Yes.
An ordinary kitchen cook stove? I mean, it would be in a house, or did you have a specially large one up there?
Well, it was a pretty good size one up there.
And I suppose the kid who was supposed to cut wood from you just got it from the area where you worked. Did you haul coal up to the stove?
Sometimes they had coal. It all depended upon the weather, whether they could bring coal up or not. But for the most part, we burned wood.
Well, if you were up there in the winter, were people moving back and forth to town easily? I mean, or did you go up there and stay for several months?
Well, we stayed up there, see. But, there was a lot of people that would come in, drop in, you know, because they loved to explore around.
Oh.
They'd come to the Annie, and I remember Cornwall was the superintendent's name, and he and his wife and friends had come, and that'd be ecstasy for me, and we didn't like it.
Did anybody ski around in those snowy days?
Well, not in my time at the Annie. Yes, we did too. Maggie Magnifico and I. And she lived down lower in the valley.
I thought she lived in Turlock Park at one time, but
No,
this would be the Castle Creek Valley then.
Yeah. And she and I would come down, and there was cabins, and sometimes we'd go right over the roof of the cabin.
I remember one person saying, all the kids and the people run to the car and all the dogs panicked and run the other way. The dogs were scared to death of those cars. And and horses were too.
Oh, well now, was when the first car came, everybody obviously was driving around in buggies and things in Aspen.
Yes, yes.
So the main street of Aspen.
And the horses were scared to death of that car chugging. Well, that first car chugged and made an awful noise, you know. And the horses were just scared stiff.
Oh, did you ever see it cause a panic, the first car when it came?
Oh, sure. I got in a runaway on account of it.
Oh, tell about that.
Oh, I don't.
Oh, yes. Oh, what happened?
Well, I had a boyfriend who invited me to go for a buggy ride. So we went out across the big bridge, and I think down by Red Butte, and then coming back, we were just approaching the big bridge. And here come Dr. Lerf with that old car chugging, and that horse just panicked. I'll never forget it. It just kind of stopped and trembled for a minute, and then it just gave one lunge and left the road and went out through the sagebrush.
About your work up at Lost Man and the reservoir and that kind of thing, working on the tunnels. Now these, when
I started in 1933 and 34, the first really started, and lasted for about 5 years for that. 4 years for the first tunnel.
What was the name of that one?
The main tunnel going through the Twin Lakes out of Lincoln Gulch, called the Reservoir, Twin Lakes Reservoir. Then Pat Rogers had that contract. And McGoffin came in and built another tunnel from Lost Man on Independence Road, put a 2-mile tunnel through and take that water up to the same tunnel. I worked on that.
They connected, huh?
Let's put 5 years in Lincoln Gulch.
Did this project mean a lot to the town as far as employment
Sure
and
did,
that kind of thing go?
But there was depression on then, see, it was 36.
It's about the only payroll.
It was the only payroll we had here.
They had the WPA working then too, didn't they?
Yeah, the WPA that time, but I never was on it.
You were working for the county. I think that, or someone once told me that there was no one on relief in the county.
No, and you know,
that everybody
I seen that article, that young man wrote that we were all on welfare in
I read that
Craig.
too.
Craig, I didn't think that was fair to the Aspen people because we weren't all on welfare.
Phil Crosby mentioned this to me once years ago. He said that nobody was on relief. Everybody ate deer meat and potatoes and
maybe some
and
old couple, something like that.
People that couldn't help themselves, you know.
Exactly. But everybody else managed
to
with
get
gardens. And did the grocery stores have to did they give people credit if it was necessary?
Yes. So much credit.
And you know, one nice thing about it, you could order your groceries and they were delivered to your house. You didn't have to go shopping.
Yeah,
that's
them days.
nice.
They told you what you need and what you can buy.
Practically self-sufficient then, Hugh?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, that was the idea. See, as a matter of fact, during the Depression years, I still remember we didn't have very much money, you know, actually, but we were so much better off than some of these poor people in Aspen. Because we had all this produce, the vegetables, and we had beef, and we had pork, and we had a smokehouse. We cured our own hams and bacon, and then we'd butcher these pigs. And I remember my brother Stuart, he was a great guy. And we'd come into Aspen, and we'd try to peddle these pieces of beef. And we'd come in on a sleigh, all the way from our ranch, 15 miles away. And we'd come in here, and we'd go around different places, and you know those poor people, at 5 cents a pound, they couldn't afford to buy a whole pig. See that?
Mel, can you tell us a little bit about the town during Prohibition? Where Was any liquor actually made out in the hills, do you suppose?
Well, it was made right in the homes, it was not, you know.
Was it, did it...
Lots of people, see, you could make beer, you could buy malt and make your own beer, which was against the law, really. And they'd get grapes and they'd make their wine, and then a lot of them would get raisins or sugar, and even potatoes. I guess they'd make liquor out of potatoes. And they'd have their own stills. Some of it was good and some of it was pretty bad.
Well, when were you the telephone? When were you telephone operator?
From 1909 to 1916, and then I went back in November of 18 and worked till 23 as telephone operator.
And that
I was chief operator with the telephone company, and I had the girls all under me. I done the bookwork for the telephone company.
How many girls did you have under you?
We had, well, there was 3 girls on the switchboard and a night operator.
And this was, the telephone office was?
Up above Sabatini's.
Oh.
Well, that's where Sabatini is now. It's up. I think he isn't Sabatini. Does Sabatini rent the top there, or has he rooms or anything? I don't know. I don't know what's up there anymore.
And when you were telephone operator, what was it? Did people call in and say, "Do you know where my mother is," or something like that?
We had a regular board, and they called for their numbers. You see, and you plugged in and out.
You know, at night we didn't venture. Children had homework and things like that.
Yeah, they really stuck close to home. Mm-hmm. No TV. Did you get any radio reception?
Yeah, when I'd finally come in, I remember John had one wouldn't work, and he put it in a washtub to see if he couldn't get a better reception.
It was only about that day.
And what happened to the reception after you put it in the washtub?
You could hear it, but you had to be right close to it.
Earphones on.
Oh, really? Uh-huh. What stations would you get?
That's one I don't remember.
Because the mountains have a lot to do with the reception.
Mike and I used to sit night after night in that washtub.
It was Thanksgiving Eve, and we were living here and had our little girl and our dog was here. And then the phone rang, and they said that we were partners, the Kobe Shoe and Clothing Company, and it was, well, the drugstore is still on the corner, and that building next to it was the Kobe Shoe and Clothing Company. And there was an explosion of some kind took place, either between the 2 buildings or in the basement of the drugstore. But we had what we thought was a big fireproof wall, metal wall, and it didn't stop anything. And it was Thanksgiving Eve when the phone rang, and of course I took our little girl and the dog over to my mother's and left them and went on uptown with Homer, and we stayed at the rest of the night. And it snowed all night long, and it was bitter cold, and the boys that was fighting the fire, their clothing would just freeze stiff. So then we opened up one of the buildings across the street, and well, a lot of people ran in and grabbed some of the things out of the store, trying to save it. But of course we had fine Hart Schaffner marked suits and stuff like that. And when they were grabbed and thrown down the middle of the floor, it didn't do them a lot of good. But anyhow, people were wonderful in trying to help, you know. Well, then the boys were getting so frozen trying to fight that fire that we finally, some of we women went over and we made a lot of hot coffee, and then we would help those fellas get those frozen things off of their feet, and we'd take the stock out of the store and give them good heavy socks to put on just to keep on fighting the fire, you see. Oh, that was a nightmare of a night.
How long did the fire burn?
Oh, it smoldered for a long time, quite a little while.
Was the fire department, was it a volunteer fire thing, or was there a regular?
Well, we didn't have any real equipment like we do now.
What did you?
We had a hose that was attached, and I guess there's a picture out at the museum in there of the brigade, they had this kind of a cart, you know, with the hose to it. Wasn't that what they used then, Mary?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember World War I.
Was there, I mean, there's a picture of 12 men. Was that a unit or something that went from Aspen?
I think they were the first 12 that was drafted here on the draft law.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh. And Jim Sheehan went, and he was a brother-in-law to, and he was an uncle to my niece's children.
Oh.
Or to my sister's children. He was one of the first ones that went. And there was Joe Boyce. I can't think of their names. I know that there was those probably were the first 12 that was drafted. And you see, they had a regular draft law like they do nowadays, and they made them, and they went and sent them. And Jim was overseas quite a while. But Jim was in the commissary department because him and Shad were running a grocery store. And that's what and they put him in there. He came back. Most of them, I think, came back.
They did? Oh, that's good.
Of course, quite a lot of them are dead now.
Well, free men love and despots hate, and God alone decides our fate. Uncle Sam's children unto a soul will enroll on honor's scroll. Fly over the top with freedom's cry, and tyranny must fade and die. Luck to you, lads, with the Yankee yell, over the top and give 'em hell. 'Twill help repay the sacred debt we owe the gallant Lafayette. Rush over the top, show Kaiser Bill our father's feast at Bunker Hill. Jack Leahy, Ashcroft, 1918.
Milt, I wonder if you'd tell us a little bit about the schools in the 20s and the 30s.
Well, in the 30s is where I would remember more about schools. I was on the school board for I think about 16, 18 years. And we didn't have a very high valuation here in Aspen or Pitkin County. And our teachers were not paid a substantial salary, but probably is enough to live on at that time. I think our teachers received $75 a month for a 9-month period. And they were teachers too, real good teachers.
Were there 2 schools in operation?
Yes. There was the Washington School and the Lincoln School.
One at each end of
town?
town?
Then they tore the Washington School down when I was on the board, and the Lincoln School, and built the school as it is now down on Hallam. And they have added to that since then.
How many pupils were there in the school? Do you remember offhand in, say, 1935, roughly?
Oh, I wouldn't imagine much over 135, 50 children. Graduating class would be, as a rule, around 9 to 12 or 15.
Were there little schools out in the country at this time?
Yes.
They hadn't been reorganized into
no.
one big central school
No.
with buses and that kind of thing?
No, at that time we had no buses. And there were schools at Woody Creek and Brush Creek, and then way down the valley there, Redstone, and scattered throughout the country, and up the Frying Pan.
Did you say Owl and Brush?
Owl and Brush Creek, yeah.
Well, one of the Owl Creek School is still there, I guess, and so is the Brush Creek School.
No, Brush Creek, they didn't have a school on Brush Creek. It was Owl Creek. No, there's one on Brush Creek, sure.
Yeah,
That was right there by the
it's still
Hoagland
there.
Ranch.
And the ranch kids, I suppose, walked or rode horses to school.
They walked or rode horses.
Were you in that that school board you were a member of, did that have jurisdiction over those schools as well?
No.
Who took care of
They had
those?
school boards of their own.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
For each
they were
little
all
school?
elected. For each district had a school board.
Because they were really one-room schoolhouses,
Yeah,
weren't
they're
they?
one room.
Yeah.
And most of them are good schools, too.
I'm sure they were.
High school?
Well,
What
we had
was
a
the
beautiful
school?
high school building. It was a private residence, and it was donated to the city for a high school. I have a picture of it.
Oh,
And you know what they did?
what?
When they started to build that big, long middle school down there, the best I can remember, they just bulldozed that beautiful building down.
They did? Oh, that seems to be happening with everything.
Well,
That's nice.
it was a plain crime. It would have made a wonderful part of the school system, or a museum, or a fine library.
Certainly to build onto
It was one of the finest buildings in this town.
Graduating class in 1920, and there was 26 members.
And where did you graduate?
Well, we went to school in the old high school, of course. We graduated from the stage in the Opera House.
Was that a regular thing?
Yeah, the Opera House at that time was. They used to graduate from the Opera House stage because they didn't have no place big enough in the school class. And of course they were on the stage out there.
Did you have to, were there special dresses that you had to wear when you graduated?
No, you got your, you took whatever, you made your own, made it or bought it or whatever you please.
Were there many stores and various businesses, or what kind
yes,
of businesses existed in the downtown area, say in the 30s?
Well, we had about 5 or 6 grocery stores.
Why?
And
Was there a department store?
yeah, Kobe's was the only big clothing store we had. Then Evans had a store.
And how about Mr. Parsons' drugstore?
Oh, that's way back in history there.
Yeah, but it came up to
yes.
the present,
Yes,
almost.
right
Yeah.
up to the present.
Also, would there be a place to go and have sodas and this kind of thing?
Ice cream parlors?
Yeah.
Yeah, there used to be one in the hotel. And then there was the Julius Berg's. They had their confectionery and ice cream parlor.
How long did that last? I mean, I didn't mean to sound like that. How long did Julius Berg's confectionery exist?
Well, the girls ran it after the father died.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Louise and one of her sisters.
Do you know, in the winter, my grandfather moved to the Jerome Hotel because they didn't plow the streets down here, and he didn't drive. So, and he was a widower.
Couldn't drive.
So, and no, you couldn't get through, but he particularly, so he'd moved to the hotel, and it was $35 a month, board and room, and he could keep his dog there.
And had music every Sunday night, too.
That was when Mansard, Lawrence's dad.
Were there many people living in the hotel?
Quite a
Oh,
few.
yes, it was really the place to be.
Oh, I bet it was
Jake Yeckel was handy.
Maud lived there.
Who?
What?
Maud and Dr.
Maud
Twining.
Twining.
Yeah. And didn't the Smiths live there?
Was that Manfred?
Yeah?
No, that was
Smith, his wife.
Drew Smith. Benny Smith's parents. You remember Benny?
Yeah.
Old Lloyd Warder used to be an assayer. Remember
Did he
assay
live there
office?
too?
He stayed there. There were a lot of people.
Well, and then he would go to his drugstore. I gather that was just a couple blocks away.
Right.
In those days when they didn't plow the roads, you could drive up the street. Everything had to be horses and sleds, you know. The guy'd bring you the coal with a horse and sled. But the streets, you could look in the kitchen windows of everybody's house. The streets never were plowed. Snow kept building up, you know.
And were the groceries delivered? I think they were.
Oh,
Weren't they
yeah.
in a sleigh, maybe?
Okay.
Sure, they all had horses.
You know, as long
drawing.
as they had the meals there, I don't pay too much attention to
Yeah,
how the
that's
groceries got there. You know how kids are? They don't care.
But I had a great big horse here one time. And I'd go up on Main Street with a pair of ice skates on. Can you imagine this? Now everybody drug chains behind there. She weighed about, she was about 15 or 16 hands tall. And I'd come home from school and I'd get this mare out of the corral. I'd go clear to the Red Butte, past the Red Butte Cemetery on a pair of ice skates.
On the streets.
And she'd pull me with
Behind
the
the
bit,
horse,
you know. Yeah, with the bit. I had a driving harness on her. I'd just hang on to those reins, and that was my recreation. Then we'd ski, and everybody shovel their trails out the middle of the street. You know, they'd go putting her out. So we'd ski with those long skis. We'd get somebody on a lariat rope and take him and go up the street here by Gretel's, clear out. You'd jump all those places
The
they
mounds?
shoveled.
Yeah.
Well, they wouldn't, yeah, you just go right over.
Well, did you do any skiing on the mountain?
No, nobody went on the mountain, only the old
The miners. I
old
guess.
miners. But they didn't, Ajax Mountain, you know, they came from the park tunnel down on skis,
Oh, yeah?
but that was all wooded.
Oh, a
So
really
they
exciting
had
trip, huh?
They had these long skis, they could make their own. They had a big, long pole they put between their legs, see, with a washer on the back end of it. So that when
Like
they
a-
wanted
like a
to brake,
ski pole,
they didn't know how to turn like people know how to turn now. They just stayed on that thing.
As they bent
brake,
the...
But it worked, didn't it?
sit down and brake. Yeah, I wished I had a lot of times to have a runaway on some of these mountains now.
You could still do it if you put your mind to it. I
Well, they'd
bet
have
you.
to have a different than a ski pole.
They might frown on that washer down the
Oh,
lip
they wouldn't
lines.
make any more tracks than snowcats.
I thought skiing started here in the late 30s, though. I mean,
Well,
cut Roche Run and all that
Before
kind
we
of
were
stuff.
married, when we did, well,
Yeah, we
Roche
had the
Run,
boat
that was
tow
the old
back.
boat tow.
Jig back.
Did you ever come up and ski on that, Peggy?
Mm-hmm.
And you
It
were
Scared me to death.
Did it really?
Sure it
Did
did.
people fall out of it?
No, the lift didn't scare me. It was just after you get up there and it was just straight down. From the second road up there, you know?
Yeah.
Not very
Above the
wide, not much
corkscrew,
wider than this
Oh,
room.
below the corkscrew.
Was it
right-
below the
Right at
corkscrew?
10
Oh, yeah.
Tower. That's
Yeah,
where
it
the,
wasn't too far
we had
out.
that old boat wheel, and one boat would
Steep.
go up. I'll show you a picture of it. One boat would go up, and the other would come down. It was a great place for the guy working there. Everybody didn't have any ski pants with the zippers on them. They'd lose all their chain in the boat, and Aldo and those guys used to pick up all that money.
Aldo Kussmeyer?
He was running,
Close
old
one.
Blade Bray.
What a pair!
Yeah, that's a pair. Be three of a kind.
But that was kind of fun, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Did
It was when
people-
you knew everyone.
And here now, see, I read some of these papers, you know, and about these new people that have come in, and they never seem to think or talk or write about the old timers, the real old timers, like John A. Beck. See, out now you didn't know him, but I did. See, he was in the Opera House, and that store was run long before any, of course, long before any of these other stores came in. And John A. Beck, he was really great. He gave away money, well, not necessarily money, well, it was money, because in
He
other
had to
words,
pay
these
for
poor people that they couldn't afford to buy groceries, they'd come in that store and he'd mark it down on the books. Yeah, so-and-so. He never got that money, and he never expected to get it, I don't think. I really don't think. And I know that he lost, oh, well, I couldn't tell you, I mean, because I don't know.
But he kept going, didn't he? I mean,
But
the
he-
store was...
Oh,
went on
sure, and he had money when he died, but he could have been, if he'd been like these other thieves, he could have been a millionaire. That's true.
He was a nice man.
He was the greatest.
It was.
Oh, yeah, that red soil down the valley raised the finest potatoes that ever was. They were just wonderful. You know, now that's mostly buildings on all of that fine ground, and sometimes when I read about how there's a shortage, a world shortage of food are going to be, and I think, well, they could take all of those trailers and put them up on the side hills somewhere, and that valley would produce wonderful grain and potatoes and things. And if that's true of this vicinity, it could be in a lot of others.
It certainly would be.
And when our food shortage grows, we're going to have to start thinking about those things.
That's right.
But it always made me kind of sad even yet to go down through that valley and to see all those trailers and things sitting on the ground that I know what the Vagneurs did with them.
You know, I do believe the people were more friendly toward one another in those days.
Well, one thing we knew everybody.
Yeah, and knew them well.
And you know, if there was sickness or something in the family, it was always the help there. Anyone would be willing to help them in any way they could. Well, you know, now you're almost total stranger to some people.
It does seem that way. For instance, if your neighbor was sick, you'd go cook and clean for them, I suppose, this kind of thing.
Or when the mother had a new baby or something, another wife would go in and help out, take care of the child and everything. It was all different than it is now.
The staff of the Quiet Years wishes to thank these Aspenites who gave their time and loaned their photographs. Hugh Chisholm, Milton Connor, Ethel Frost, Maxine Garrish, Frank Garrish, Violet Leavy, and Joan Lane, interviewer. Peggy and Red Rolland. Mr. and Mrs. John Schnider. Mrs. Lena VanLoon and Mrs. Mary Vagneur. The Aspen Historical Society, Jim Markalunas and Fred Willoughby. Banjo by Gil Nelson, music and poems by Hilder and Bill Anderson. Joe Boland, piano. Technical assistance by Candy Harper and Linda Maslow. The Quiet Years staff, Nellie, Blangdon, Joan Lane, and Arrabella Sundance.